Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our YD Co-Lab Collaboration Junction. It's so great to see everyone. I do know people are still trickling in. We did have a few challenges with the link, with the Zoom code. Some people weren't able to register because we had over 100 registrations. And Zoom meetings have a limit. And this is our first time using this platform. So it'll be it's going to be a very interesting time. So I'm expecting to see quite a few people trickle in as we solve for that. But I just want to say a very big welcome to everyone. Please do keep introducing yourselves in the chat. So if you can just introduce yourself, your name, share your name, your where you're based, and what you're looking forward to. And I'm about to launch a quick poll. Let me just make sure that the poll has the right questions. But thank you. I'm very excited for everyone who's joining. We'll be introducing. So let me just quickly update my slide so that you can get all of the information. Here we go. Okay, just a few things. Let me just quickly start sharing again. Hopefully you'll all be able to see my presentation. Okay, I'm not going to share sound. There we go. I hope you can all see my presentation here. Welcome. We're all talking all about joint ventures. I'm going to give you a quick overview. So just a few things. I'm hoping that as I said, more people will trickle in. My name is Rufaro Mudimu. I am the project manager at YD Co-Lab. I'm also a steering committee member. I've been at YD Co-Lab and being in the steering committee since inception of this wonderful organization. So welcome, that's who I am, and you'll be able to see my name. I need to just update my name. For those who haven't yet, please do update your name. So how you can do that is you just click on yourself in the participant list, and then you can add your name. So you can add your name, you could add your name, organization you're coming from, so that we can all see who you are, what you're up to, etc. It will make those connections a little bit easier. So a few general etiquette rules as we're doing this. If you're not speaking, please do turn off your video and microphone. The reason why is, unless otherwise indicated by the facilitator or the moderator, which is me, the reason why is we want to make sure that everyone who is online is able to connect. And we all know with different bandwidth issues that if some people have their videos on, it drains bandwidth, etc. Please do use the chat freely to respond, to ask questions, to engage with each other. And I'd also like you to please use reaction. So we are in a large group. So if you want to ask any questions, you can raise your hand. So if you're on Zoom and you're in the meeting, if you go to the bottom, well, it depends on where your meeting information is. But you can see where it says raise hands, and it should have, and you can just click that. And keep it up because it will give us a sense of who is asking what first. And then there's the react button. So that gives us different emojis. It helps us so that we can actually be engaged as well within the session. So I am going to ask if we can do a little bit of a practice run around using the react buttons. Please, if you can go down, see the react buttons, if we can just do a quick round of applause, or you can do a round of applause as people clapping. So I see someone has raised their hands. I think you may have chosen the raise hand and not the react. There we go. So please do. Yes, I understand there's load shedding or load reduction happening across the country. So please do rejoin, and we'll make sure that you're able to rejoin as we go along. Thank you. So maybe should we try that react again? Maybe if we can do, you know, yes, the celebrate sign. So, you know, that it's called Tada on Zoom. So if we can just use that, just so we go, oh, you know, we're celebrating. We're happy to be here. We're happy to be together as participants in this program. Awesome. When we are going to have breakout rooms later. So when we do have breakout rooms, please do make sure to turn on your video, because it'll be a smaller room, so bandwidth won't be as affected. But please do that. So here is a bit of an agenda for the session. So you have our welcome and overview, which is happening now. Like I said, we did have a few technical difficulties. We are expecting more people. Just so that you know, this meeting is being recorded. We are also going to be recording the session or be sharing the recording with all of the participants, with all of the people who registered for the session, so we can share the information. So we'll be recording the panel discussion, as well as all of the plenary parts, which is the open discussion parts of the session. We'll be sharing that recording. Because this is, we won't necessarily have slides because it is an interactive session. So the slides are more of a visual guide for the flow of the session. There actually isn't any slides. We're going to have questions, and we're going to be going in depth in conversation. And that's what happens at the Co-Lab Junction. So we will share what we need to share. And if you need further information from any of the panelists or speakers, you can let us know, or they can share their details and you can get in touch with them directly. And so we'll have our panel discussion, which will start shortly. We'll end at about 2. The panel discussion does have set questions that I'm going to be moderating. We will try to make sure that there is time for a Q&A. And what will have happen during that Q&A is you can pop your questions in the chat, but I'm hoping that the way that the conversation will flow in the panel, it will answer most of your questions. And then in the second half of the session, we are going to have breakout discussions. And that's going to be really around exploring different partnership potential, connecting as YD Co-Lab members or interested parties. And one of the tasks is that we do have a YD Co-Lab conference or summit that is happening soon. And we would love your input as members of our community to shape that summit or the conference and see what you would be interested in. So I really hope that you will stick around to be part of that second session. It really is where people can connect and match. Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of what YD Co-Lab is all about, we were established in 2021. Well, actually in 2020 is where the idea came up, and it was 6 organizations that got together and had this idea of what would happen if we created a space for collaboration in the youth development sector. There's so many of us doing such great work, but there isn't actually often a chance for us to safely understand who to collaborate with. So you meet people at conferences, and then you start working with them and partnering with them. And then you meet other people and start working and partnering with them, but there isn't an aggregator. So that was where the idea was born. Actually, as of May 2024, actually, we have way more in that. We have, as of July 2024, we have over 78 registered members, and there's over 400 organizations in our database that we've collected through our different programs and initiatives. So that's a little bit about what YD Co-Lab is about. Our mission, and which also are kind of our principles that we look at, is we want to build, understand, advocate, and build community in the youth development sector. So this is what we're all about. So you'll see sessions like this is around building community as well as understanding of what is needed in the youth development sector as a whole. To be, as advocates, we want to be a voice for organizations, and we consider the full spectrum of any organization, company, individual that is advancing youth development in South Africa can be a member of the YD Co-Lab. And we want to make sure that our voices as a collective are raised, so that when there is government initiative, private sector initiatives related to the challenges that affect young people, that need, and solutions that need to be created, that we as organizations that have been doing this work in the impact sector for a very long time are also included. So that is what YD Co-Lab is all about. I did have a little bit more, but since we're running behind, I want to make sure that we really get stuck into the panel discussion as soon as possible. But you can find out more about our organization, go to ydcolab.org, or you can shoot us an email at info@ydcolab.org.za, and we'll be able to share the information about our programs and the work that we do. Great, so I'm now going to introduce our panel discussion. I'm going to, just as a reminder, I'm going to allow, so if all of our panelists can please turn on your cameras so that we can see you, and I'm just going to make sure that you can also unmute yourselves. So thank you so much to our panelists. We are discussing joint ventures. And in that, so we've defined joint ventures because everybody thinks about it, this formal thing, even when I brought this up. But what we are actually having is that when we're looking at defining joint ventures, it's any strategic partnership of organizations where two or more organizations get together to achieve a specific goal. So that could be, it keeps it quite broad. So it's things that often sometimes are, very formalized, and there's governance and all these things that are put together. But then there is also the partnerships that we have that might not be as formal. And those are all joint ventures because they're part of doing that with a specific goal. So we wanted to have a conversation around people who have done that well. So we reached out to YD Co-Lab members, people in our network that we know have been involved with and doing joint ventures for a very long time and have this experience and creating this space so that we can share that experience. So that's why we have this wonderful session. Please, if anything, please continue sharing your reactions. I am going to launch a quick poll so I can see. I'm going to launch the poll. Please do answer it in your own time, which is just getting a sense of what everybody is. But we'd like to know if you've attended YD Co-Lab sessions before. And also, what is your experience of joint ventures, right? We want to see, have you done it? Has it been successful? Have you faced challenges? Or if it's a no, are you just considering it? What is going on? So please do that poll while we introduce our panelists. So we have our wonderful panelist, Dadisai Taderera, who is from Ashoka, Southern Africa. So she's done quite a lot of joint ventures across the region. So not just in South Africa, but organizations outside of South Africa as well. We have Erica Kempken from SA Youth at Work. She's the CEO of SA Youth at Work, and their model requires partnerships and lots of joint ventures in order to place young people into the world of work and have that first work experience. We also have Onyinye Nwaneri who's the group CEO, Dr. Onyinye Nwaneri, the group CEO of Afrika Tikkun. And they are one of the largest youth development organizations in South Africa. They've been going for a very long time and have a model that really incorporates partnerships. And we have Senzo Masumpa, who is the COO at ZLTO, which has created a platform for young people to be able to track and build their CVs in the impact volunteering work that they do, and has just launched a really interesting joint venture in Alexandra Township with Walisa. And what they're doing is called Partnership for Possibilities. So just so that we have a range of and depth of mix of experience, etc., we're looking forward to that. Great, thank you. We're seeing the results from the poll. Please keep voting. We need a few more to vote. But yes, welcome, Erica, Onyi, and Senzo. Welcome. I'm going to ask the first question. Are you all able to unmute? Wonderful. Let me ask you I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can focus on us. And I'd love to hear from each of you. We'll start with Dr. Onyi around your experience. So what is the work that you do and what is your experience of joint ventures?
So good afternoon, everyone and fellow panelists. It's really wonderful to be here. I really am excited to be part of the collab today. I am the Group CEO of Afrika Tikkun, and Afrika Tikkun's vision is to enable young people to become socially and economically empowered. And we do that through a Cradle to Career 360 model and programs. And the Cradle to Career 360 model looks at every stage and phase of the development of a child until they mature into a young adult capable of employment or self-employment, and then support that young person to actually access that in real time and to sustain that. So if you look at within that Cradle to Career spectrum or model, we focus on early childhood development for children aged 1 to 6 years old, and we call it our Bambanani program. In the primary and high school phase, which we call our Ignite program, we focus on after-school programs to enable young people to complete matric and hopefully become well-rounded individuals at the end of the matric period. And then in the post-matric phase, we have a level up program, which is a gap year program for young people trying to find themselves and their true north and trying to understand their career pathways. And then finally, we have a Head Start program, which is a career development and placement program for young people that are unemployed looking for employment. And we give them soft and technical skills that enables them to then get that employment, but we also facilitate using our social capital different types of employment as well as entrepreneurship opportunities for them. Finally, we have an alumni program because we believe that once a Tikkuna, always a Tikkuna, and we look at supporting young people from a career advancement point of view so that they can hopefully advance and become leaders of business, leaders of civil society, leaders of politics and government in the medium to long term. We then surround young people with what we call a 360-degree program, which is more or less our social support services, which encompasses nutrition, food security, primary health care, as well as all psychosocial support. And included in that is our disability and inclusion program. And then finally, we have a health and fitness program. So it's a very loaded, comprehensive program. A model and programs that support that. So the ultimate intention is that children meet all of their milestones and hopefully become socially and economically empowered as young adults. To achieve this model, Afrika Tikkun cannot do that alone. Afrika Tikkun requires multiple partnerships across the cradle to career spectrum to be able to do that. We have been able to execute a very comprehensive and integrated model as a result of simple and complex partnerships that enable us to be able to deliver key activities and outputs that we want. We are also a national organization, and we are national not because we have facilities in every province, but because we also have found a way to be able to partner with other organizations to enable us to be able to execute that cradle to career model nationally.
Wonderful. Wow. Afrika Tikkun does a lot. That's such an amazing, amazing work that you do. Let me ask for Erica, please go ahead. Introduce yourself, the work you do, and the joint venture that you have done, or some strategy and outcomes related to that.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, it's a hard act to follow after Ani. So we are not big like Afrika Tikkun, but we play a very active role in youth employment. So our vision is really to empower youth through work now and in the future. And we've got 2 key programs. One of them is an employment program, a 12-month work experience program where we place youth into a job for 12 months where they get paid and hopefully remain employed or self-employed, entrepreneured beyond the program. Our second program is to look at where does the root of youth unemployment sit? And as Ani has indicated, very much at its foundation in early childhood development. So we have got a youth-led screening service where young people go into schools armed with technology that can then test the children's ability, understand their learning gaps, and we've trained young people to close those learning gaps so that every child has the ability to really reach its potential, and with reaching its potential, be able to take its gap or their place in economic growth once they complete school. So it assists them to complete school better, go on to tertiary education more effectively, and then transition into employment. Again, we can't do this alone. We need lots of partners. First of all, we need funding. We need money in order to, 1, run our program, and 2, pay the youth. And so we collaborate with many different funders, some bigger, some smaller, some in different sectors, some who are very specific. This morning I met with funders from Pizza Hut, and they're running a Lead Hership initiative, which is really allowed young women taking on a role and then supporting them into leadership development. So every funder has got their special value add that they want to bring in. So once we've got funding, we've got program funding and support, we then work with where are these youth going to be working? So all the different host sites in green, in education, in manufacturing, in ICT, in finance, and so on. So we've got different partners that we work with, vetted host sites that we work with, and then place the youth within there. And so the network of people that we work with is really big. The strategic alignment has to be very clear. Also, how we work, when we work, who does what when, needs to be really clear for this whole thing to work. So operational efficiencies are important in partnerships and for us to reach a common goal. So I think it's really clear at the big forefront of engaging in strategic partnerships where the goal is common, and when we both, all parties want to achieve similar outcomes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erica. I mean, I think, the collaboration piece or the joint venture piece, we sometimes don't think of the operations. And I think that operational piece that you've just brought up will definitely come to. Senzo, can you share a little bit about your organization and the joint ventures you are involved with?
Thank you so much. And again, good afternoon to everyone on the call. It's such a pleasure to be here amongst the panelists and quite familiar faces in the space. So my name is Senzo Masumpa. I'm part of the ZLTO team. We developed a tech platform that allows young people that are engaging in positive behavior to be incentivized and be rewarded for the work that they are doing in community, whether they're engaging in learning journeys or they are volunteering or any kind of behavior that can lead towards a change and improving amongst the youth. We incentivize that using blockchain and smart contracts to verify the data that young people are doing in communities. We currently have over 350,000 young people in South Africa, and we've done work and collaborated with in other countries and other parts of the world, mainly in Nigeria, and done work in Kenya as well, in Tanzania, and a couple of others in Uganda. Our core focus is being able to create a space where young people can first engage in the power and move away from sitting away from the street corners to accessing opportunities on the platform, whether it's through learning, whether it's through engaging in volunteering and positive behavior. And for organizations that we have collaborated with in the past, we are able to track the data that young people are doing, even those that are part of like existing program, where the collaboration part comes. So we're able to create these dashboards for organization to track the impact that they're doing in young people, and being able to track the journeys in terms of like the training and the attendance and skills that young people are earning from participating in programs. And we've seen the platform being adopted by other organizations that we've done work with, including some of the ones that are here in the core, like Afrika Tikkun with that work, even Enke, some of the organizations that we've worked with. So being in the tech space is quite interesting because the tech, we try to standardize as much as possible, but through these joint ventures as collaboration, there's always specific use cases that organizations are trying to address, which are sometimes not easy from a tech point of view to make uniform. So those has been some of like the early challenges that we adopted in this path of creating collaboration with other organizations. But we've been able to address some of the challenges, especially the ones that are common across other organizations that we've collaborated with, because we want to maintain a certain standard of uniformity on the platform while being able to cater for organizational needs. In terms of like the current collaboration, and one of the key things that we're doing at the moment, we running this partnership initiative called Pathways to Possibilities, where we're taking young people across the country through a 12-month program as well, where they are being trained in 3 possible career and pathways opportunities: tech, green economy, and entrepreneurship. And they go through this training program where they are incentivized to compete and learn and complete courses, with the goal of placing them into like employment opportunities, and others venturing into business opportunities and creating their own businesses. And then in terms of like collaboration, yeah, funny, when I was looking at the poll, there was a last question, I don't know if it's the second last or the last one, that was asking whether how have the collaboration been in the past. And I saw it's only like, yes, great experiences, or also no, I haven't had great experiences. And in some instances, it's a bit of both, because sometimes partnerships are never easy, even though the intentions are to impact and transform communities. But the nitty-gritties are sometimes challenges that get faced along the way. And I'm sure we will speak further around that as time goes on. But yeah, that's it on my side.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Senzo. You are doing some very interesting work. And that moves us to Dadisai. So just to help us zoom out from the South African context and bringing it into Southern Africa and the larger continental context around joint ventures, if you could introduce yourself and some of the work that you've done around this.
Thank you so much, Rufaro. And it's really lovely to hear about the work that's also happening within our ecosystem. So Ashoka, we envision a world where everybody is a change maker. And we want to live in a world that cultivates these skills that value empathy, teamwork, creativity, shared leadership, and also change making, so that every child and every young person, regardless of their economic background, can realize their fullest potential. When we started in the early 80s, our main focus was to create a home for social entrepreneurs. And this, when our founder coined the term social entrepreneurship, he was looking at a very specific kind of social impact leader who was not only solving systemic problems for others, but really looking at how do you unlock people's potential so that they can self-advocate and also solve the problems that they face. As the world started, changing really rapidly, one of the things that we realized and had to pivot was that while these leading social entrepreneurs had very innovative ideas and really addressing a systemic challenge, it was not enough for us to only support these sort of unicorns. And it also, in some ways, made others feel like you have to be really exceptional to create change. And so we started looking at how do we ensure that every child masters, change making, and that every child is able to grow up knowing that they've got agency, that they can look at, challenges within their community and are able to contribute to solutions. We're also seeing that, as the world changes so rapidly, this has become a new inequality. Those people that believe they've got a, agency within themselves and can contribute to solutions versus those that don't and largely sees themselves as victims. And so we're looking at how do we really influence those growing up years of children. And this requires collaboration and really transformation of, the whole ecosystem. And if we're going to also bring a systemic approach, really looking at what are the root causes of these challenges, what are the stumbling blocks? And I think my colleagues have alluded to some of these challenges, looking at, from cradle to employment. How do we ensure that they've got the right skills? And so what we are now doing as a global organization is looking at how do we look at the different aspects, be it schools, parents, trade unions, government, curriculum. How is all of this contributing to setting up every person for success? In South Africa, we all know we have the highest levels of, not in employment, not in training, young people. And so, and even for those that go to university, we have a lot of unemployed graduates, which means there's something within the system that is failing these young people, that they don't have, this entrepreneurial mindset that they need to be able to really survive. And so in the Southern Africa context, we started with a collaboration with the fellows within our network that are working with young people on various aspects, and also on the full spectrum from, cradle to employment or the employment years as well. And looking at how do we then now look at beyond the impact that each organization is having, how do we now look at working together to create that systemic change? How do we start to also work with government, work with the Department of Higher Education and Training, whose vision and mandate is also really looking at, entrepreneurship education. But, we look at it beyond just creating a business, but really creating that mindset that I can contribute to change. Whether you then start your, you are entrepreneurial within an organization, you start your own, for-profit business or your social impact, business. We believe that it is important that, having opportunities to test your own agency and building that agency throughout your, especially in the formative years is important. In this regard, we also partnered with funders in terms of, running challenges that give young people space to explore their own agency and also an opportunity to say, well, I'm seeing this problem. How could I, put forward a solution and, to provide them with the kind of support that they may need to be able to do that. And if we can do this in their formative years, then we see that we've got change makers for life, as this is, what is common amongst even the leading social entrepreneurs that we support. So in short, our work is really heavily reliant on collaboration, as the kind of change and impact we want to achieve. There is, we cannot do it on our own. We do not even have the capacity on our own. And if we're going to reach every child, we have to really think about everybody in that, ecosystem of that child and how we can work together.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm sure you can see we have lots of experience. There's already interest in collaboration that has been shared on the group. If you do feel comfortable with sharing your contact details or the contact details of your teams that are responsible for building partnerships, please do. But you can also shoot them to me and Lolo, and we'll share later after the sessions as well. So my first question, and any of you can jump in here, is really related to your experience around what, in your opinion, are some key elements that differentiate a successful joint venture from one that might fail. So if you can provide a specific example, it would have to be very brief, But we just want to know, like, what are some of those elements of decision-making, thinking through, that differentiate success versus maybe less success or failure? Who would like to go first? You can just indicate and I'll come to you.
Yeah,
Go
let me
ahead,
go
Annie.
first. And I'll speak particularly using one example. We have an ICT skills development and placement program that we run every year, and we have multiple funders in that program. We have NASPA's who funds only the training aspect of the program. We have Microsoft who funds some elements of the program, for example, the certifications element of that. We have Department of Social Development. So we have multiple funders, both private and public funders within that. But in addition to that, we also have other funders who are coming on board as not necessarily funders, corporates, more from a mentorship. They're coming on board to mentor the young people in terms of that. And then we also have another joint stakeholder that we work with, which is our training partners. Some of the training we do ourselves, some of them we don't. We bring on board, we have joint ventures with key training partners who work with us to be able to ensure that those young people are certified. We also work with universities because majority, at least 70% of the young people in the ICT program have to be graduates. So we have to work directly with universities to source graduates from either ICT or similar related fields. And then we have MPOs that we work with as well to source young people as well, because we're looking for young people who already have an investment. So there are multiple partners in that. And then we have employer partners, SMMEs, who would then employ, our target in this particular project is 85% placement, post-graduation. And what we found worked is that when you're selecting your partners for a project like this, our ICT skills and placement program, very high value. It's close to the value of the project is close to about 50 million rands in terms of all of the partners funding it, plus they're bringing different skills and expertise, and they want to be intimately involved. So the funders are not the funders that give you money and walk away. They want intimacy in relation to that. They want to bring their expertise. They want to bring their all sorts of things there. So to look at a joint venture of this nature, you have to really evaluate your partners. We're very careful to choose our partners. The partners we choose have to have a shared commitment around vision, output, and outcomes. So we're very clear upfront, what is it that we want to achieve? Do we have commonality around that in terms of, and that agreement? We choose partners that already have a track record and who can help us to deliver on the outputs and outcomes and results we want. We choose partners that already have reputation, their reputation, not just the track record that can do it, but in terms of alignment on reputation and values of Afrika Tikkun is critical, and then willingness to collaborate, that we're not looking at a financial relationship only, we're looking at beyond the financial relationships in terms of that. What we've seen work, once we've evaluated the partners and chosen the right partners who share all of these things with us, we contract with those partners. We sign clear memorandum of agreements or understanding that speak around what are our roles and responsibilities, where does it stop and where are the boundaries. And we recognize what are the key things that work for us out once we have contracted is continuous open dialogue from the start. We set one of my big values is honesty and transparency. We have to be, from the beginning of that partnership, be very open around, what are the parameters of working together, what are our goals, what are expectations, where is the mutual benefit in this collaboration? Because if we're not seeing mutual benefit in the collaboration, then the collaboration will not succeed. And then we also, through that contracting, as well as in our engagement, define those shared goals, objective and output and outcomes, and we should define it across the value chain from whatever roles anyone is playing, who is bringing mentoring, who is bringing training, who is bringing, I am linked to employer partners, who is bringing certification, what do they all want from it? But we also recognize that things don't always, good operations is not throwing a switch. Along the way, things happen. And that flexibility and adaptation is critical. You know, being able to enable of course, you have clear on your goals and you want to achieve that, but being able to enable the partnership to evolve, you know, over time, and to seek partners that are flexible to adapt. And that comes with regular meetings. Almost, we have meetings on a weekly basis in the beginning, and then we move it to bi-weekly and once a month once things settle down, to ensure that as things evolve in the partnership, that we're adapting as circumstances change, so that the collaboration remains aligned to what we want to achieve, as long as it remains aligned. But what happens in between, we cannot control sometimes, but we are able to look at how we pivot as things shift, as long as the goals and outputs and outcomes are not compromised. But finally, so that I don't hog the platform, in terms of that, what is really critical is to have a clear monitoring and evaluation framework that is jointly co-created and owned, and for which you are tracking on a consistent basis what it is that you're trying to achieve. Where there are successes, celebrate your quick wins, because that's important, while identifying your risks and mitigating those risks by effective monitoring evaluation, and then looking at ways of managing those risks as they evolve. But really, those parameters are critical, and holding each other accountable to what you come to that joint venture to do is one of the things that enables success. And at the end of the day, if we own all of it at the end, then we know that we are wanting to achieve it. And we also exit partners. We're quite sometimes ruthless in exiting partners who are not bringing their part, because at the end of this, about what is it that we want to achieve? What's the vision, the goals, the outputs, and the outcomes? If we say we want to achieve 85% employment and we're not achieving it, and you cannot, we've exited a corporate partner who came on board to give us and didn't achieve it. And this year in that we didn't bring them back, because it's really about what change we want to collectively create as a joint venture, and holding all of the moving parts together in that joint venture as a whole. So I'm going to stop here so that I can allow other people to also contribute.
Thank you for those inputs, though, Onyi, because I do know you have a hard stop at 2. So I think you've covered quite a lot in terms of challenges, in terms of what kind of structures need to be put together, formalizing the partnerships that take place, making sure it's in writing so everybody understands. I'm wondering if Erica, or I'll take maybe one more input before I go to our next question. Erica, I see your hand. To just share a little bit about what you think are some of the differentiators for success versus failure in joint ventures.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oni has outlined it very clear, all the different partners and role players. But, you know, I think one thing that we sometimes overlook is we plan these programs for young people. So, you know, you will go on training and you need to work over here and you need to do this and whatever. But the youth are the main partner. So we've got funding and we've got places and we've got this, but if there are young people there who don't buy into this kind of partnership and expectation of what is it that you need to bring to the party. So you might not bring money, but you have to show up. And then you need to go to training, and we expect you to pass in training, and we expect you to submit your assignments on time. And so those are contracted partnerships that are very, very valuable partners in this whole game. But we have to contract differently, you know, so all our monitoring and evaluation about, have you submitted your attendance register? Do we know that you're at work? Did you receive your pay? Have you got a pay slip? You know, all of those things are trackable, but all the point I'm trying to make is we all need to bring ourselves to the party, and especially the youth. And you know, Oni, we can't put 85% in absorption. Imagine we had a program where 50% drop out, and then we left with, well, what do we do now? So so that's just a very, very, very valuable part in the partnership that is so critical to any of these program successes. And how do we evaluate the youth who come on the program? What are the criteria? What are the selection criteria? How do we choose you from you? Because we know we put one ad up there and we get hundreds of applications for the same position. And what is it that will differentiate the partner we are looking for in that youth to play that role, to go out there, to be the ambassador afterwards, to open that business, so that we can 5 years later talk about this was a participant in the program, a beneficiary of all of this, and now they've opened their business and that they've become employers. You know, these are the kind of journeys in these partnerships, long-term impact journeys that go often well beyond the short-term project. If we've got a 1-year project, but actually this kind of impact, we want to be able to measure 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, what were the outcomes of that project well beyond the actual program.
Thank you so much for reminding us that, you know, the youth are the central stakeholder. And also that it basically also that, you know, what I'm taking away from that is every stakeholder that you're talking about, every partner requires a different strategy, and putting yourself in their shoes for what conversations are needed and what agreements need to be put together. I do know we're running a little bit over time. I think we have we're supposed to have about 5 to 10 minutes left. I'm hoping, panelists, you can stay on for just those 5-10 minutes. Thank you. And we'll tackle a few other questions, but let's get Dadisai's input and then I'll ask one more question. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to ask a question, please can you pop it in the chat and we'll see if we can address it while we're in session. Go ahead, Dadi.
So thank you. I just wanted to raise maybe 2 different points in terms of how we also collaborate. First of all, we recruit by doing, our partners. So we have to actually do things together and see, are we on the same page? And as part of that recruitment by doing, we have to see, are you internalizing the same values that we want? So part of the change is, you know, the inner transformation of the individuals. Are we really aligned in terms of, you know, the systemic goal that we want to achieve? And do you believe in the same things? Because we believe that those that we collaborate with are going to become ambassadors of the work that we do. And they, in their work and in the collaborations that they do, you know, outside of our collaboration, will become, you know, the co-leaders of this change that we want to see. Another thing is that we then also start to see how you integrate these values, you know, within your work. How are you integrating it in terms of really creating change for young people? How are you integrating this idea of developing these entrepreneurial mindsets amongst young people and, you know, changing the way that you sort of, you know, do your work? And then from there, you know, are you able to influence others? Because we want to influence the whole ecosystem. So everyone we collaborate with, wherever you are and in your space, you should be also, you know, be able to influence you know, the outcomes from your perspective. So sometimes we work with, it means that we work with people that we don't necessarily agree with, but we see how they are important in terms of the actual overall success of, you know, the systems change that we want to see.
Thank you for that, Dadisai. The next question that I have is a bit reflective, and I'd like to come to Senzo for this, especially because with Pathways to Possibilities, it's something that, you know, you're in the process of doing, and, you know, just launched it. And I was like, looking back on that joint venture, is there any strategic decision you wish you had made or could change, and why so? So how would it have changed the outcome? Or in that reflection, what are some things that you wish you had known before you went into the joint venture?
Yeah, thank you so much. And just for context, again, the program is looking at like the Alex Township, just for context. So the youth that are participating in the program, we in partnership with the organization that is called Dadisai, which does weigh and pay model in terms of like approaching groceries, trying to eliminate and tackle the issue of like poverty tax, where you can get the same item at the retail for more, whereas like in less quantities, it costs way more compared to like if you bought like a 10 kg of rice as an example. So they selling food in like bits based on how much the person can afford. And then in that partnership, it's fairly new. They built their first container, and like part of the partnership is for us to expand with them throughout the Alex community. And I think to your question around like whether there's things that you would have wished to know, since it's a fairly new item, so there's a lot of like uncertainty around like the model, like the waiting times when we're there on the ground, just seeing how long it takes to actually weigh the food that like the participants are buying and the young people are buying. And it takes a lot of time to get the quantities right, as opposed to things that are already packed that you can just grab and pay for. So in that environment, you have to be able to be open. I think the panel spoke about the importance of like having the initial plan in terms of what you're trying to do versus like being open enough to find ways that you can solve some of like the things that we're not taking into account. And since we, again, in the tech space, we have to be open around the fact that some of the young people don't have access to devices. So how do you then also address the issue of like devices? How do you ensure that youth that don't have access to data to access like the platform are able to also participate? So there's always those kind of things that are not accounted for when you're looking at like a new venture. But like, as long as for me, the intention is still there, and like the in terms of like execution, there's still that belief that like there's a greater good that you're contributing to. You always to see how you can also help out one another in terms of like the input into the program, and like ways that you can almost board the plane as you fly it, because it's a pilot. Have not been done it before. So there's a lot of things that are going to change, and like you're going to need to improvise on the spot. So I guess from my side, I think it's important when you approach partnership to approach it with that, like as much as there's a preparation phase that takes place and conversation that will take place, there's always going to be things that are changing as you move along, especially as you start to hand over to other people and bring other stakeholders and other people to execute on the operations of like the partnership.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Senzo. I think because I do know Onyinye has a much harder stop, I'm going to bring this to you as well, because, and I think this also comes up with, there's a question in the chat around what's the difference between partnership and contract signing? And when you do have to build as you go, what are some conversations? What are some strategic decisions that you wish you had made earlier when things may not have been going so well?
Yes, thank you for the question. The difference between a partnership is that the different parties are bringing something to the project or to the partnership. It's if it is a relationship only where one party is paying other parties to do something, then it's a service provider relationship. It's not a partnership. In a partnership and a joint venture, there is value being brought by different partners. There's mutual benefit for both parties in that instance. There's something I have, you have, something I don't have that you have, that you bring into the table, and I'm not necessarily paying you for it. So, for example, in our ability to go into other provinces or cities where we are in, there are organizations who have been in that environment, have been grooming young people in those environments, but they don't have the ability to get those young people into jobs. For example, they have been skilling, they have been educating and creating leadership, but they can't get them into jobs. Perhaps they are bringing young people, we are bringing the opportunity for them to access the economy. In that instance, I'm not paying you, I am enabling you to show impact, so that there is mutual benefit in that instance. When the contract signing in a partnership environment is to define roles and responsibility and to define what are the terms that enable us to partner. Different from the contract signing in a service provider relationship, where I am paying you to do a job of work for which I expect you to do it and report back to me. And so if you are looking at a joint venture, it's people coming together to achieve a common goal, common objective with clear outputs and outcomes that says, at the end of the day, we all win and we celebrate our success collectively in that instance. That's a partnership. Anything else is perhaps, you are doing work for which, and then both parties should be, if both parties cannot hold each other effectively accountable, then it's also a difficult one, whether in a partnership, but it's not a one-sided relationship at all. It has to be, what is critical is that there is mutual benefit there is mutual resources brought to the table, mutual experiences and expertise brought to the table, then you're talking partnership in that instance. To answer your question on reflection, is really around what is unsaid, is often the challenge here. You go into sometimes a partnership where there is certain things that are not clearly said, which is why that honesty and transparency is really important if partnerships need to work, because we have to say everything I want must be on the table and everything you want must be on the table. And the beginning is often painful because you're trying to find yourself and figuring out, where do we find ourselves and how do we create the container that enables that partnership to be brokered and then to be agreed and then to then evolve over time. So that's often, we have found instances where people come onto the partnership, but at the end of the day, they actually want to be service providers. That then becomes a difficulty because you say you come into the party because you want to contribute, but at the end of the day, you're actually looking for funding. I'm being very honest here. And if what you're looking for funding is, then from get-go, we talk about, I want to partner, but I don't have money. This is what I am bringing this, and then you should bring this because you don't have it. So those honest, transparent, difficult, courageous conversations is often things that we don't do in partnerships well, and then it starts blowing up in our faces further down the line. So that's the one. Secondly, perhaps we have not really understood the challenge the problem we're trying to solve. And we find that we have unintended consequences that emerge. I remember trying to go into Mpangeni and together with a number of partners into Mpangeni, and we've never been into Mpangeni ourselves, taking an agriculture program. We have our way of going into communities, and the other partner had their way of going into communities, and there was a deadlock, around this is how it must be done. And I think there is some maturity to figure out at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about what we want to achieve and the change we want to create. And I think rising above how we do things and how we expect things to be done is often a challenge because people bring different approaches on how to get into Mpangeni, for example. Some people feel that we need to go to the chiefs and we've got to, buy presents. Afrika Tikkun says we don't buy presents for anyone, and then you start fighting over basic things. And so if those values that you've got to decide those values, because otherwise the program was stalled for example, in this instance for almost 2 months, just on how do we do community stakeholder engagement and what is the best way, because again, ultimately we own it and we've got to figure out, what's the best way to overcome, especially value conversations. Value and approach conversations often are sticky points, but it takes maturity, courageous conversations, and focusing on the end game. What is it we want to do here? And how do we overcome our differences to still get to where we want to land?
Wow, thank you. That's so helpful, Onyi. I'm going to come as a last thing, just as a reflection. So from each of you, the other panelists, please, what is one input, one thing that you think is important for people to take away as they are contemplating going into a joint venture, and or one thing that you need to be aware of and to build in? So anything that Onyi may not have mentioned, or other ideas of things that need to be thought about. Erica, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing here is about respect and trust. And I mean, we've spoken about it, and Oni has kind of spoken around it, but I think the big thing is, I trust you that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I respect that the way you want to do it is the way that I will support you. So it's those kind of values that are given. And I'll bring a very clear example of, I mean, I've run a company before, and I was in a training organization, and then I looked at the CS program and I thought, this is something I know I would like to be involved in, we can do, and I can register a company and we can get involved, but I don't want to do it on my own. And people go out there and say, oh, having a business partner is a very risky thing, so that often doesn't work out and it's tricky. And well, having a business partner was probably the best decision I ever made. And having a business partner who complements my strengths and weaknesses. And I think this is something that is in between, the stuff that, like Oni says, we don't talk about, but it needs that honesty. Is if I go into a discussion and say, I think these are my strengths, this is the role I like to play, these are the things I really don't like doing, don't give this to me because I'm not good at it, I'll mess it up. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where do we complement each other? And how do we become better together? So what is it in this partnership that we do better together than any one of us could do on our own? And that's really been our strength. Is I think in youth's work, Youth at Work strength is, one, the partnership of the founders, that is solid and strong, and we have a common vision, but we also have, you do this and I do that because you're better at this, and that's how it will work better, more effectively. And the same way we look at our partners is, what do you do better than us? What do you do which is your key secret sauce, which is your key reason for existing? And how do we support that? And what do we do that you don't do so that we don't clash like that? So honesty, respect, and trust, probably most important for all partnerships to work. And I mean, we are hoping that this government of national unity, will do the same on small levels, on big levels. It's all about trust, and it's about, you said you were going to do this, now go and do it, So on any level, and look at the world where we're at. We need to collaborate on those levels.
Thank you. Dadisai, what would be your inputs there?
I would say also to have the right decision makers in the room is always a key one, because it helps you to be agile in terms of, making quick decisions rather than having people that have to go back and consult. So I would say having the key players and the right decision makers in the room is important in terms of collaboration. I would say lots of patience and empathy is also really important, because sometimes you're figuring it out as you go, and you are bound to make mistakes. So I think if you have got the honesty, like everybody said, and integrity, at least assume the best intentions with, your partners, and extend some graces, especially in the beginning stages where you're trying to also learn and understand these people, know who they are. And I think that having a North Star that continues to bring you back, agreeing on what are those very fundamental principles that, these are our principles and this is what will be our guiding North Star. So even as we evaluate, are we still, going towards that North Star and what we want to ultimately achieve? Because sometimes it takes a very long time to really see the success of the partnerships and, collaboration. And so, it's a journey together, and, on the journey, others might stumble and, fall sometimes. So some empathy, patience, and, just, all the other things, integrity and other things, accountability, become really important.
Thank you so much, Dadisai. Senzo, what are your thoughts? Final thoughts as well?
I guess on my side, one of the things that I want to highlight is sometimes saying no could be the best thing than going into like a toxic partnership. I think in a space where we always encourage to collaborate and partner and because that's the cool thing to do. Even at conferences, you want to exchange business cards and all of those things. But I want to be clear that sometimes the best thing is to say no, especially when you see that the partner doesn't, sometimes you can sense that the partnership is just maybe not the fit for what you're trying to do, but like because of like the name, you wanna tick off, add on your website that you've also worked with so and so that you can impress the others. For me, I think one of the tough things as a leader is being okay with saying, no, this is not the right time, or maybe this is not the right project for us to collaborate on. So for me, I think that's quite important, because when you go into those toxic relationship or partnership where things are just not, the foundation was never a good foundation to collaborate on. So it does more damage and waste everyone's time down the line than if you can say no and prevent the bad collaboration from happening.
Can I just add?
You. Yes,
Can
go
I
ahead,
add just 5 things perhaps to just note, in addition to what my fellow panelists have said. One is always establish clear roles and responsibilities. Focus on mutual benefit. Mutual benefit is important. I can't overemphasize mutual benefit. If it's not mutually beneficial, don't do it. Build flexibility into that collaboration to be able to solve for building while you are understanding what the challenges could be. Invest in relationship building. People work well when they have a relationship than when they are not. And then I just also want to add measuring impact and celebrating success. So don't just look for when it is not going well. When things are going well, celebrate every single win, and success is really important. And then finally, I just want to once again say prioritize, what that communication, continuous communication on every level. Find platforms that enable you to be able to iron out the angst in the relationship and in the joint venture.
Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like we're taking so much away. Thank you for your additional time to our panelists and those who are on the call. We're only here for the panelists, but I know there's others that are here for the rest of the session. We'll be getting more in-depth collaboration conversations. But I want to say thank you so much. I mean, I've learned so much. And also, in reflecting for ourselves as YD Co-Lab, is the importance of partnership, knowing when to say no and what to say no to, even for our members. So members have to sign up. So we have a membership agreement that when we say registered members, we've signed up to a set of principles around how we will conduct ourselves in the space of collaboration for this organization, right? And I'm really taking that away, and also being able to say no. I think, Senzo, your point, that final point was so important. And I think the beauty of what we're looking at is, one, we want every young person to be a change maker. But when we're thinking about our partnerships, the stakeholder relationships, to centralize youth and what we are trying to do, keep that at the center as part of those values is really important. And that we also need to understand we're contracting not only for money, not only for partnerships, not only for expansion, but for young people to be engaged, to be bought in, so that they can also be part, and making sure that young people are part of the process of change making in their lives. So thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. Please, everyone, if you are available, please, you can feel free to unmute, and so we can hear applause, or just use the reaction button so we can applaud our wonderful panelists. Thank you, Onyi, Senzo, Dadisai, Erica. It was such a pleasure to have you. I hope you'll stay for our next session, so that we can have some collaboration discussions. But if you do need to drop off now, please do, so that we can get into our connect session. So I'm just going to remove all of the spotlights so that we can get everybody into the gallery and we can start our collaboration conversation. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. That was so awesome. Okay, I think that we are ready to wrap up. So just so that you know a bit of our programs and events. So there's this one, which is our Collaboration Junction, and it is literally a space to meet. So that's why we call it the Collaboration Junction, is the junction of where all different people can meet. It is national, the virtual ones are national. We do also have in-person sessions that we have done in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban. And we are hoping to be able to open up more of those as the organization grows. We've just wrapped up a program which is called the Member Collab Collectives. So what that is a facilitated space where organizations come together. So we actually create collaborative spaces for organizations to come together and get training and training to make sure that they can create collaborative projects. We have our ecosystem mapping report, which you can find on our website. You can download the report. You just have to share a little bit of information. The reason why is because we want to know where the distribution of the report, who's engaged with it, etc. So please do share that. And we also have a resource library. So very nice inputs, some takeouts around collaboration, how to put those together, how to put together joint partnerships, joint ventures, all of that. We do have it in our resource library, which is on the website. And we also try to add as much value as possible to our members. So we do member spotlights, and what you might have seen. So if you follow us on our platforms on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, you would have seen some of our member spotlights. And we list our members on the website so you can see who has ascribed to the YD Co-Lab vision, mission, and values that you can reach out to. So we try to make sure that people can reach out to each other, and we're in the process of compiling a directory of youth development organizations so that we can actually have a sense of who is where, what are they doing, and who can we partner with. Our upcoming events, we will be having a masterclass. So looking at that being focused on impact measurement. We'll be announcing those dates within the week. Within, or at least in the next 2 weeks, around when we will be having that masterclass session. And the big one to please reserve in your calendars, we have the YD Co-Lab Summit that we will be doing in the middle of October. So the date is the 17th of October. It'll be a full day conference, which will include keynote speeches. It'll include organizations that have collaborated. It'll include our members. It'll also have time to have collaborative workshop and in-depth discussion. So we can learn from each other and have that exchange that you have mentioned. And we are going to be also looking at, since our membership has grown from our original 6 to over 70 members, almost 90 now, is that we're trying to make sure that our steering committee is representative. So we'll also be having an AGM and election of new steering committee members, which would happen end of October, early November, and we'll go into strategy, and hopefully we'll be able to announce who are our 2025 activities by the end of the year. As we go, as I said, if you want to become a member, we have dropped the links in the chat. All you have to do is send us an email, info@ydcolab.org.za, and we will send you the information that you need, as well as we need you to complete the member profile form so that you can get the membership agreement signed. We need somebody to sign that, send it back, and then that makes you a registered member. And what's important is that we're here to facilitate connections. So we don't necessarily engage in projects on the ground as an organization. We're here to aggregate information, resources, to build, to connect, to advocate on behalf of youth development organizations, those in the impact sector that are doing great work. So that, as Mark had mentioned, there's so much that is going on that sometimes we feel there isn't enough, but there is so much that's going on, but let's be able to celebrate that a lot more. That's some of the things that are going. Please do fill out our feedback form. So you can snap the QR code there. Or you can also visit this website. So it's a bit.ly contact around feedback around the session. Let us know what you think about the session, what your experience was. We'll send everybody as well who participated this link, so that please do fill it out. It really helps us with our events and planning and design to make sure that we're able to share that information as you know, making sure that the information is available to everyone as possible. And I just want to say thank you to the team behind the scenes, Lolo, to our panelists as well for their wonderful inputs, and to all of you who have joined the session. It's such an important piece. We wouldn't be able to do that without the people who are in the session and who are taking time out of their day to participate, to engage, and to have conversations. So yes, feel free if you want to turn on your cameras, put those reactions so that we can applaud each other. Thank you very much for being with us today. Have a wonderful afternoon and all the best for the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.